Today, you'll hear from one of the most intriguing voices in leadership development. We're diving deep into the forest of leadership with Jeremiah Shaw, founder of Gravity Leadership. We're about to discover what ancient forests can teach us about modern service department success. Welcome to the Fixed Ops Mastermind, Jeremiah.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you here. If you could give the audience a quick introduction, and then we'll get straight to the wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the co-founder of a leadership development firm. We focus on helping leaders that wear jeans and boots to work. So we do a lot of work with manufacturers, machinery, construction, oil and gas, those industries. A lot of fun, a big passion for that world.
Excellent, and we have a lot of people that are wearing may not be jeans, but definitely work boots to
Yeah.
to work every day. So the show, as always, broken into three segments. This week, our segments are growing your leadership grove. Segment 2 is cultivating team synergy, and segment 3 is going to be sustainable growth strategies. If everybody's ready,
Let's
let's get
go.
into it.
Yeah.
All right, segment 1 is growing your leadership grove. And first question, Jeremiah, is as someone who helps leaders become more grove like, how can fixed ops managers create an environment of protection and renewal for their teams while maintaining high performance standards?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that question. It comes back to why we named our company what we named it. We started with our values, which is where we start when we coach or train organizations and employees. And some of the things that were arising are these words like integration and integrity and abundance. And so we started leaning into like this imagery of what really captured that. And it was this idea of a growth. And as we look at that and build these coaching groups and work with organizations, when we look at a leader, we start realizing that those that they have within their direct reports and their teams, they have a deep responsibility to not only get the work done and drive outcomes, which we believe is directly connected with how you show up as a leader, right? So we're not saying that this way will slow you down. We're actually saying this idea of leadership, of seeing yourself as a grove for the people around you, that they are within your care, that you need to sustain them and renew them and make sure you're pausing to listen to them. Because our approach in leadership is trying to figure out, hey, what really drives an employee? What drives a leader? What drives the organization? What are your values? How do we get those aligned? And then how do we move forward together? And values are all about how we're going to accomplish what we're doing. It's an
Right.
agreed, it's an agreement that it's an operating agreement. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's this grove like idea of like, hey, let's sit here for a little bit, pause, figure out who's on the team, what motivates us, what are our values, how are we going to get it done, what are your roles, what are you responsible for? And then how are we going to hold each other accountable within that before we step back outside the grove? Like you're not just supposed to sit inside this grove and this, Skittles and rainbow idea. You're supposed to get back on the trail, continue on together, have each other's back, with trust.
Yeah, that's awesome. The word that jumped out to me there is responsibility.
Mm.
And I think at times, like, we realize as leaders like what we have to do, but sometimes we don't realize how much of a responsibility
Mm.
that we actually have to the others that, as you said, are in our care.
Yeah. Yeah. So many, how many leaders just step into a leadership role because it's a higher paycheck or it's a better title, and they
Yeah.
don't carry the weight when they're making this decision of, is this really what I want for my career?
Hmm.
And how many leaders have we met that end up saying, "Hey, can I just go back to sales? Can I just go back to being an individual contributor?" Like this whole people thing is really hard, right? And it is, and
Yeah.
it takes a special person that's really figuring out how to serve with a servant's heart.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a very different position to be that go from that individual contributor to now the leader of all those individual contributors. That's for sure.
Yeah, one of the biggest hurdles that leaders face, that
Yeah,
mindset shift.
absolutely. And so you emphasize the importance of knowing, accepting, and defining yourself. How
Hmm.
can service managers apply this framework to become more authentic leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think we've fallen into a trap, whether it's social media, whether it's maybe a previous leader that we've had, of trying to look at that as a framework and then become that. And I don't think that's how we're genuine leaders. I think we're genuine leaders that figure we have to step back and self reflect on ourselves and say, okay, what am I really about? We have to start with that self leadership. And here at Grovity, what we do is help leaders step back, figure out, hey, what are your values? What are you about? Why are you in the role you're in? What about this organization really aligns with your value systems? And once they start recognizing that, they start showing up in a more authentic way. Then they understand and uncover, hey, what are your motivators? Is it people?
Mhm.
Is it performance? Is it process? What are these things that are coming out for you? And then we can really get down to, hey, how are you showing up for your team? Because if you know yourself, then you can really lead others better. Now, there are some basic management and leadership practices that they need to adopt. But if
Yeah.
we're trying to be somebody else, or that we have this idea and mental image of a leader that we are a hardline stickler, right? And there is no forgiveness, and mistakes get you fired. Um,
Mhm.
this is going to trap us and not recognize, hey, who am I supposed to be as a leader?
Yeah, that's a huge statement right there. Who am I supposed to be as a leader?
Yeah,
And I think you're right. A lot of times, people are trying to imitate something that they've seen that
yeah,
they think is supposed to work, and maybe it does for the person that they're imitating, but it doesn't work for them because they're not being authentic. And everybody wants to be authentic to a point, right? We just blatant authentic. I don't know how you say that word.
yeah,
Being authentic, constantly 100% authentic, is
yeah.
probably not the right thing, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it's tough. It's a balance, right? I was coaching he's a COO, and I was coaching him earlier this week, and they're going to have to let a couple people go in his department, and he's really wrestling with that, and you could see the stress, um, and we really figured out, hey, what values are being pushed on here? What
mhm,
doesn't feel right about this?
yeah,
And then he knows what he has to do for the sake of the organization.
sure.
The problem is he's wrestling with who does he want to be in that moment? What type of leader does he want to be in that moment?
Yeah.
Right? Because he can't just be fully transparent and say, hey, here are all the other organizational reasons and strategies behind this move, right? That's not the those underneath him for them to know. So he holds that, but then he shows up as a real person and who he wants to be, so he
Mhm,
can align with his values, so he can go home and sleep at night, and we
yeah.
decrease the stress, increase the clarity, and now he already knew what to do. Now he knows
Mhm.
how to do it and who to be when he does it.
Yeah, that's terrific. And so you've mentioned values several times, and I always say that the values that you're instilling, the values that you carry yourself and that you instill in your team, become the morals of
Mhm.
the institution, the company that you're working for.
Yeah,
It really becomes the compass that you're going to live by.
yeah,
Um, I'll tell you a quick story of having to let somebody go. I was at a dealership, and I had been a leader of a dealership a bunch of times, and I had to let a person go. And the fixed ops director of the group was like, "I'll come down. I want to show you how I do this."
yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, don't need to." It was about an hour away. I'm like, "You don't need to. I can do this." And he's like, "No, I just want to show you how I go about it."
Mhm.
I'm expecting to see this revolutionary way to do something difficult, of let somebody go. We go into my office with the person, and he literally goes, "Yeah, it's not working out. We're letting you go today. Any questions? Please call HR." And he goes,
Wow.
They'll have all the other information for you. Here's your last check."
Yep.
And the guy's like, "Can you tell me why?" He's like, "Call HR."
Mhm.
And the person get up and walked away. I was like, that you drove an hour
Yeah,
to do that? You could have just told me on the phone, like, I'm gonna show you how to be extremely cold with somebody.
yeah. Yeah, and so what a great learning opportunity for you, right? Of getting work for a leader and say, is that how you adopt? What do you adopt out of that and continue on and carry with you
Hmm.
as a leader, or do you step back and say that didn't feel quite right? And,
Yeah.
and now we're talking about that being, and in coaching, it's always about the doing and the being and balancing that out. Who are we going to be in that moment? And it sounds like you said, I think I would like to take a maybe a little bit different approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can say that maybe I learned a little something from that. Maybe I had been being what was being, I'll call it, too soft when I was letting somebody go.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
I didn't ever like letting somebody go, and you know, you hear people say, "Oh, they made that choice to they made that choice, and the things that they didn't do doesn't make it any easier."
Right.
You know these people have families. You know they're relying on that paycheck, whether they were getting the job done or not getting the job done doesn't make it any easier to let
Right.
somebody go. And so, Jeremiah, having worked with various organizations, what do you find are the most common leadership blind spots that you see?
Great question. I'll say this: there are really three areas that. Uh, on Monday, I had a great call with a new client, and they brought their executive team and committee in as we're talking about through this proposal and seeing if we're the right partner. And somebody said, they're sitting there and they're saying, well, one, are these common themes that you see in other organizations? And what they're saying is, are we that broken?
We,
And I always say, no, actually, you're just like everybody else.
yeah,
And just because you're in this industry, people are people, right? It
yep,
doesn't matter the industry. The same themes, top three or four, five themes come up in every organization.
right,
Usually, it's communication, huge blind spot for leaders. They think
yep,
they're communicating because they're communicating the way they want to be communicated in,
yes,
not others, right? They said, "Well, I said it, okay, but what was heard?" And so,
hmm,
huge blind spot, especially with new leaders. Trust, they don't recognize what is trust. How do we build trust? Because communication, conflict, all these things that exist, employee performance, employee engagement, no, none of those things can be achieved if we don't focus on trust. So, communication, trust, conflict are usually kind of the indicators when people start to reach out to us.
yep,
Obviously, we love the people that reach out to us before we get there, but those are usually pretty big blind spots. Leaders think that they know how to handle conflict. Usually they don't.
yeah,
Gallup is pretty clear with their research around why do people leave organizations? It's the boss.
hmm,
sixty
yeah,
percent of the time, it's the boss, right? And that's usually they don't trust them. They aren't clear and concise with what they're asking. They're not managing well, right? Of saying, "Hey, here's what you do. Here's how you win in your role. Here's how you're held accountable. Here's my style with you."
yeah,
And they just don't trust them. And so
yeah,
those are huge blind spots for leaders to step back and say, okay, here's how I do conflict. Here's how I communicate with my team. Here's how I hold them accountable. And here's how I continue trust, right? Which is just relationship management.
yeah. And you mentioned communication at the top of that, which a lot of it all just flows from that, right? A poor lack of communication is gonna erode at trust and all those other things.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know who to attribute this to, but I heard this once that said, as a leader, your job is to communicate until you're bored of saying what you're saying, and then say it another 50 times.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of truth in that. A lot of truth in that.
absolutely. And so we're gonna move into segment two now, which is cultivating team synergy. So a little focus on team development and coaching. And your team coaching process includes a define and design as the first step.
Hmm.
What key elements should fixed ops leaders focus on when creating their shared vision for service teams?
Yeah, so the shared vision for a service team, that is really the defined moment. We're talking to an organization right now, manufacturing organization, working with kind of their directors and VPs, and the biggest conversation that we're having now is making sure that where the organization has been very clear on what's the vision
Hmm.
for the organization and from the executive team,
Yeah,
because within these coaching sessions, that's not going to change.
yeah,
And so it's our job to come in and help them really be the glue and kind of reinforce the communications around that vision. Um, and they've done a great job because they say, hey, here's the vision. Here's our 3-year vision. Here are our quarterly markers. Here's what your role is, how you contribute to that. So we're coming in and helping them clarify, okay, how do we do that together as a team? And so being able to sit down, and this is the same process with every organization. We come in and provide assessments for people. And I think that's where what people miss is they just assume, hey, here's the vision, go execute it, right? But they never get down to and back to the values is like, okay, how are we going to exist together as a team?
Sure.
So a lot of what we do is just co-designing the relationships, and before the conflict happens, being able to say, okay, are we all on board for this vision? Do we understand this vision? What does this vision mean for us as a team, us as individuals? What are the challenges we're going to face? When we face challenges, how will we handle those conflicts together? So that we kind of create an operating agreement as a team
Hmm.
and say, hey, here's the expectation. Jeremiah said he was going to do this. He failed to do that. Okay, as a team, that makes the conversation much less uncomfortable,
Yeah.
much easier for us to perform as a team. Now I have some peer pressure, right, to be able to say, okay, I said this, I agreed to this.
Yep.
This is how we're going to do it. And so when there's conflict, if I'm talking to somebody else about it now,
Yeah.
and I'm like, man, I don't know about this vision, all of a sudden they're like, well, you should probably bring that up in the team meeting. Maybe talk to the executive team about it because it sounds like you're unclear on some of the reasons behind the vision, which
Yeah.
are great questions, but you need to get on board. So I would say going back to how do department managers and executives lead their teams through that vision is repeat it, repeat it, repeat it.
Mm.
Visions and values are not aspirational; they're observational,
Yeah.
especially those values. We see organizations put values on the wall and vision on the wall and mission on the wall, but you never see it, right? You see it
Yeah.
on the wall, but it's not alive. It's not breathing.
Hmm.
It's an aspiration. It's not being observed in the organization.
Yeah. That's awesome, and you just said two words together: vision and values.
Mm,
I had a coaching program for leaders in service departments that was called Vision and Values Coaching. Um,
love it. Yeah.
it's the foundation of everything. If you don't have a vision for you and the team,
Mm,
and a vision that is big enough that they can see their vision for their lives within the bigger vision, and the values to back that up,
yeah.
I don't know how you go anywhere else with the business.
Yeah. It's the conversation piece. It's the direction, and it's how you're going to get there. And I loved what you said there of if you can't communicate that vision, and I'm summarizing what you just
Yeah.
said, um, then they can't answer like really what's in it for them.
Right.
And if
Exactly.
you can't answer the what's in it for me question for every employee,
Hmm.
they're not going to stay. They're not
Right.
going to show up in this high performance, fully engaged
Yes.
mindset. And so being able to say, hey, here's what's in it for you. So not just saying the vision, we're going to go make a bunch of money, but hey, here's yes, money's a side effect. If
Right.
we accomplish this vision and execute it well,
Hmm.
here's what's in it for all of us.
Right.
One is usually belonging, right? Hey, we're gonna
Hmm.
we're gonna belong. It's why CrossFit and military teams and all these teams have
Yeah.
lifelong friendships because they're accomplishing something hard together. Perfect.
Right.
Big vision should be hard.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, how can service managers apply your concept of radical generosity to build stronger relationships with both the customers and their team members?
yeah, I think if we're not giving back where it's a little bit uncomfortable, we're not giving enough. And I think we're brought up with this mentality of the scarcity mindset that there's never enough. And I think if we start looking at, hey, the pie is actually there's opportunity to grow the pie for everybody, not
Mm,
just take more slices for myself. And so for a service manager, that might look like, and I hear this a lot. We go in and teach some coaching concepts of, hey, how do you be more coach like? And we have this model where we walk through mentoring, managing, leadership, and coaching. So what do all those things? How are they differentiated? And then how do you coach? The biggest pushback we get, especially in this world, we work with a lot of blue collar organizations, right?
yep.
And the biggest pushback we get is, yeah, but you don't understand our timelines, right? And so what we say is, perfect. This is a moment for us to practice radical generosity. I might have to take some time out of my day as a leader and a manager, and I might have to stay a little later to finish my paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
And usually this comes down to, how do I find time to sit one on one with an employee and really understand their values, really understand their motivators, really understand who they are and why do they work here, and what challenges are they facing? How do I develop them? And they're saying, I don't have time for that. And what we always say, I always tell this story about we moved to this small community in 2020. It's a little ranch town, just here in northwestern Colorado. And my kids go to this very ranch style school, a lot of ranchers kids there. That is not the world we grew up in. So this is been a lot of fun. So my son comes home. He was in town with my wife. They go by this Western store, and my wife's like, he wanted jeans, boots, and a big belt buckle. I'm like, great, awesome. So he comes out with his belt. He's going outside to play. He's not going to school. So he brings out his knife with his sheath, and he puts on his belt. Well, he's never worn a belt buckle before. They go on a little bit differently. So
Yep.
first thing in the morning, he comes in. He's like, "Hey, Dad, I need help with this belt buckle." And I'm like, "What do you mean you need help with a belt buckle? Like, I haven't had coffee yet." Like, and so in that moment, I could have said, "Here, let me do it for you.
Yeah.
Let me show you how to do it." That would have been a mentorship moment, because I'm like, okay, that's how I do it. However, what we know about people, and specifically adults, is they learn best by doing,
Yeah.
and learn best when they learn it themselves. And so coaching is about taking a step back, staying curious, allowing them to stay curious, not filling that void, and being able to take a step back and say, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
Let me pause the conversation just for a few minutes and listen as a manager and say, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, there's an issue on a car. Okay, what do you think? You're new
Yeah.
here. What are some options that you think? And they may give the wrong answers, but the idea is helping them start to think critically. So
Yes.
he comes back. He tries to do it the first time. He's like, that doesn't look right. I'm like, not right. I said, but what's another way? Do you have another idea? He's like, hmm. So this takes like 3 minutes, 2.5, 3 minutes, right? So I could have saved time in that moment by saying, here's how you do it.
Yeah.
It took me 12, 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could have stopped and said, I could have asked great questions and said, hey, I actually believe you can do it. I think you know. And just let's play with this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Show me. Well, he hasn't asked me how to do his belt since. And adults are not that much different, right? Adults come to you. If you're a manager and you feel like people are always in your office, you're always getting interrupted, there's probably a reason,
Yeah.
and it's probably not your employees.
Right. Absolutely. And I've told this story on the show before, but I was training at a department, and the service manager had said during the training, I asked him separately, like, what's your biggest challenge? And he's like, my biggest challenge is that I always have to go and help them do stuff. I'm always, they're always calling me over for something. Now this was a technician from the shop, went right to manager, right? And typical,
Yeah,
no training, right? Just
yeah.
here you go, take this department over.
Think or swim.
Um,
Yeah.
and so as I was working with the advisors one on one, I asked every one of them, what can call him Joe? What can Joe do for you?
Hmm.
Every single one of them, 5 advisors, told me the exact same thing. And it was, actually, he could do less for me. If he would just, when I asked a question, just talk me through it rather than just jumping in and doing it for me, I wouldn't have to ask him again. I hate bothering him.
Hmm.
And so you had a manager who was going, I need my team to stop asking me the same question over and over again.
Hmm.
And a team going, if he would just, like, let me do it and talk me through it rather than jumping in and doing it for me, I would stop asking questions. They
Yeah.
both wanted the same thing, but they weren't able to communicate that together.
Yeah, common mistake, especially for new managers, right? It's hard for them to let go of the individual contributor.
Hmm.
And then also the second type of leader is somebody that's high type A, that my way is the only way to do it. It's not true, right? We know there's a lot of ways to achieve the same outcome. And so what we're telling employees when that moment happens, and I love that story, Dave, um, what we're telling employees when we jump in and don't leave space for their development is, one, hey, you're not going to get developed here. So
Yep.
why should they stay? Two, I don't actually trust that you're smart enough to do that.
Yeah.
And for me, as a manager, being able to step back and say, okay, hey, I actually here's let me reset on this because this is a really important, I think, topic that comes up with leaders, whether they've been leading for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, is we need to self reflect on what do we believe about our employees.
Mm.
Do I believe that they're smart and capable? Do I believe that I hire well? Do I believe that I develop well? Or do I believe that we just need to put butts in the seats and these people are stupid and they're probably not capable and they're going to be a pain in my butt as long as I manage and lead?
Yeah.
And there's two very different ways to go about that. And you can tell the organizations that do it well, the organizations that believe in their employees, that
Mhm.
develop their employees.
Yeah. You can in a lot of cases, you can feel that when you walk into a place,
Yep.
right? You don't nobody even needs to tell you how leadership is. You walk in and you can feel it.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, so you started to touch on this, but in your experience, what role does curiosity play in improving communication between departments and problem solving?
It's everything. When we get to reset a conversation or a problem with curiosity, we're detaching our emotional attachment to being right. And so when I get to extend it out and hold it out and come to you and say, hey, Dave, you're in a different department. I'm over here. Hey, we're making these changes over here, or you're making changes over here. It's impacting me. And versus me saying, what are you doing over here? Now I can step back and say, hey, let me just explain where I'm coming from. What are you seeing? Now we can detach and just remain curious around the problem
Hmm.
versus showing up and trying to be right. Same thing with employee conflict. Something happens with an employee, they break something, they mess something up, they show up late. We have the story in our head that we play,
Yeah.
assumptions that we make. And curiosity is a cure for those assumptions. And assumptions get us in trouble and create deeper blind spots for leaders.
They sure do. I love that, and I'm a big believer in remaining curious as a leader. Right? It's the sometimes the ego gets in the way, and you want to be the one with all the answers. But that is not a long term strategy for
Yeah.
success.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
and and so we move into segment three now. Last segment, sustainable growth strategies, where we're going to focus on organizational development and long term success.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned it earlier. You're living in a small town uh, with a population sign that reads question mark.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
I I read off your website. So you understand the importance of community, obviously. How can fixed ops leaders better connect their departments with the broader dealership community?
It's a great question. How can they connect? Create this sense of belonging across the whole organization.
Yeah,
What we're asking. One, just curiosity, right? It comes back to curiosity. Yes, we're in a small town. We moved from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, obviously a lot larger.
hmm,
Um, the smaller your organization is, the more people know about each other, right?
yeah,
And the more you have to like lean back into community when there's conflict because things get awkward. The
yeah,
bigger it is, it's easier to hide. And I would say for large organizations or mid-sized organizations, make sure you're creating opportunities for people just to connect before there's conflict.
hmm,
So that might look like taking all the department heads and getting them together once a month for a meeting and just discussing what are the things you're seeing. Maybe it's a barbecue for the employees. Um, maybe that's the lubricant. That's the relational collateral, the deposits you're making before there's going to be some sort of conflict. If you're a high performing organization, if you're a successful organization,
yeah,
you're going to have conflict, and it's about how do you optimize and leverage that conflict for the benefit of the people in the organization. So
hmm,
how do we create a sense of belonging? Is make sure that we're communicating the vision and the values for everybody. And when we hire, make sure that their values match that because that is a head start for relationships and community
yeah,
and belonging. When I have a shared value with somebody or an organization, I know like, hey, this is what we're about. I can get
hmm,
behind this. We always do the right thing. We always treat the client right. Man, I'll stay here forever.
Yeah.
most of us have left an organization because of friction, and that friction probably came down to the value set. So make sure
Yeah.
we're communicating that, living that, and just having casual conversations,
Hmm.
checking in on people, not making assumptions that everybody's okay.
Right.
And if they are okay, great. Now we get to develop them. So
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question there.
Yeah, no, absolutely it does, and I love what you said there about talking about values, value matching before we even hire the person,
Hmm.
right? Because you can train anything, but you are not going to change somebody's set of values in their life. That's not going to change when they come to your organization.
Yeah, yeah. That's a tough fit to make work.
Hmm. Absolutely. And so you have extensive experience in sales in your background. How can service managers better align their team's values with the department's revenue goals?
Yeah. Um, I had this conversation with a leader recently. He was wrestling over some individual contributors and maybe doing an organizational change. Um, and I think we have to understand as leaders that we have to check our loyalty. And if I'm not loyal to the organization first, if my loyalty is just like you see these leaders that are like, oh, I got to protect my team, I got to do this. Yes, we have to do that. But if I don't take care of the organization, if the organization's not healthy with their revenue, I can't care for my people. Now
Yeah.
nobody has a job, or things get really hard for everybody.
Hmm.
So when we're making sure that people, the leaders, are on the same page of like, hey, how do we grow our revenue? How do we talk about revenue in a way that doesn't make people feel dirty? Like that's the purpose of business.
Right.
Right. And so being able to say, hey, the more we drive revenue, the more we create efficiencies, um, the more secure everybody's job is. Now we get to focus on the fun stuff. I used to do
Yeah.
fundraising for a while, and everybody complained about having to make the cold calls, calling the donors, building those relationships, because they were like, well, I got into this because the mission of the organization, not to fundraise. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, but if we get really good at fundraising,
Yeah.
we don't have to think about fundraising for the next 6 months. Now we get to go
Right.
back and do why we joined the organization and have fun. So
Hmm.
let's knock this out because again, cash is something that if we have cash, things are more fun with cash,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
The healthier the revenue, that's something that, and I talk about this too. We work with a lot of HR departments too, and leadership or the internal training teams. And sometimes there's just a lack of business acumen sometimes of understanding. They may come up with initiatives that might be great ideas, but the question's never asked, how does it contribute to the bottom line? How do we measure that? Like
Hmm.
ROI, especially in any kind of service department, you got to measure efficiencies and the return on investments on these things as well. So
Yeah. Excellent. I love a great meal. I kind of like cooking, right? And that's the same kind of thing, right? With the revenue, like the eating of the meal is the fun part, but you've got to do the other work to get there,
yeah,
to enjoy that part.
yep, absolutely.
Um, and so as someone who values work life, I'll call it integration, because I don't think
Great.
there is any work life balance.
Yeah, on the
Uh,
same page. I love that, Dave. I
all
love
right,
it. Yeah.
so and I'm taking that from the active lifestyle that you described in your bio,
Mhm.
in Colorado where you live now. What advice do you have for fixed ops leaders struggling to try and maintain balance while managing the demands of a busy service department?
Yeah. Work is hard, right? Um, and we're one of the models that we use and have kind of come up with here at our company when we're working with leaders is we step back and kind of measure the different areas of their life from a holistic approach. When I start coaching new leaders, and I actually had a CFO I was coaching, and he called me after the first session because we got really deep really fast, which sometimes takes a couple sessions. And he called me and he's like, man, I just reread the agreement, making sure we were okay here. I think we're okay. Just wanted to call and make sure you didn't want to fire me as a client. Um, and he was concerned because he started talking about personal life, like 75% of the call.
Hmm.
And I said, man, this is great. you know what? I'm actually really floored that we got into that side of it, because a lot of leaders think that we're just talking about business.
Yeah.
We're not talking about business. We're talking about you,
Right.
and you are both personal and professional in all these areas. So we start looking at leaders and say, okay, how are you doing emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, relationally? You know,
Mhm.
family, community, work relationships, personal relationships. And if they're dissatisfied, then we start building goals to help them achieve those things. And so maybe your work is going really well. And I've worked with leaders. I was working with a leader at the Fortune 500 company one time, and he came back and said, "Man, it was like the fourth or fifth session we had that it just clicked for him. And he said, um, "Work's really, really good. I'm making more money than I ever thought I'd make. I haven't taken my spouse out on a date in 2 years, and I'm 60 pounds overweight, and I haven't. I took my kids in, and I'm checking my emails while I'm in their bedroom,
Mm.
and I'm like, man, what's important about this?" And he just completely folds and is like, "This isn't the person I want to be." And what he's saying is like professional career, he's killing it.
Yeah.
But every other area of his life is feeling that, because we
Mhm.
haven't stepped back as a leader and said, okay, what life do I want to build, and how do I align that back to my job? So what he did, we kind of did an evaluation, said, okay, where do you have your cell phone at? When do you check email? Who do you want to be as a spouse and as a father?
Yep.
And he said, this is the person I want to be. Okay, we created the vision. Now we create the plan with goals and start taking steps towards that. And so I would tell, and what happened, we've got to say, make this call out. Over the next 3 months, his department grew substantially, and his leaders, his directors that sat underneath him said, "There's something different about you, and I'll follow you to the end,"
Mm.
because they saw him living who they
Right.
wanted to be. He was setting the example. And
Yep.
when we say, I'm going to die on this, I'm working 80, 90 hours a week, like this is what it's about. That again, like you are a better leader when you find your passion, not just at work, but outside of work. When you
Yeah.
prioritize your life and align your life back to your personal and professional, you're going to show up and be a higher performer leader.
Yeah, you need to be a complete human being for people
Yeah.
that whether it's your family or your team to see you as a human being and not just as a boss or a dad or a husband, right?
Yep.
That
Absolutely.
that comes through. Like we talked earlier about, you can walk into a place and feel a place that has that good culture and good leadership. That your team can feel that from you. If you are just all work all the time, they know, they feel that, and most people, that's not the life they want.
Well, and the integration word, I think it's really important because there's seasonalities, right?
Yep.
Spouse gets sick, kids get sick, kids have a school play or work. Market takes a downturn. We're trying to figure out how do we come back, in a hard economy or a tough situation at work. There are seasons that we have to sit back, and that's why I like the word integration, not balance,
Yep.
because integration in my mind has a visualization of knobs. Okay, I'm going to tweak this, I'm going to tweak this, and when we take our eyes off the dashboard, things can get out of whack.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. And I always use, rather than the seasons analogy, because seasons tend to feel long,
Yeah,
right? At times, especially
yeah,
here in the Northeast, we're now in this winter season, and I do
yeah,
not like the hours of darkness.
yeah.
Um, I always use the library analogy, where you're, rather than a season of life, you're in the library, and it's a book, it's a page, it's a chapter.
Mm,
It's a lot of different things. It's all the micro moments that make up everything that is going on. And rather than having to get through a whole season, maybe you just need to get through this next 5 pages of a chapter, or
yeah.
maybe you just need to turn the page to read something different and be in a different part of your life.
Yep. Yeah. Same here. 7 months of snow on the ground. Seasons are long. I'm gonna have to start changing the word I use. Good call
Boy, oh boy. Jeremiah, this has been a really fun conversation. Um, tell everybody where they can find you. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, Jeremiah Shaw. I'm on LinkedIn, pretty active on LinkedIn. And then our website's Grovity, Grovity, leadership.com. Yes, we made up a word. We're very aware. It's Grove. It's the word Grove and the word integrity combined. So,
All right. I love it. I would have gone with Grove and Gravity is where I thought you were going with that.
yeah.
Um, Jeremiah, again, great to have you with us. And to everybody else, we'll see you next week.